Alright, what is going on, my dudes? So we're back here today with a bit of an interesting video. I've said for a while now, for months now, I want to make a couple of videos on champions who I would like to see get buffed, who I think can pretty much go from 0 to hero, not 0 to hero, but can go from okay to really, really good, especially for this video, right, for a while now, and I keep saying it. And I keep saying it, and every month we get 3 buffs, and then we get 3 more buffs, and we're running out of champions to buff. So we're gonna make these videos now, all right? We're gonna have 3 separate videos. I don't know which order they're going out in, but this video is for the value buff champions, okay? So these are some of my favorite buffs, okay? Mole Man was a value buff, by the way. I feel like people always forget that. They rip on the value buffs because Ronin came, Nova came, and they were kind of left in the dust. But then we have champions like Angela, who is a top ranked 3 option, same for Mole Man, and those were all value buffs as well. So value buffs can certainly be hit or miss. It just depends on how much value they want to buff up, all right? So without further ado, we're gonna jump into the top 10 list, and number 10 is probably gonna ruffle a couple people's feathers, but that's all right. One champion who I think is very good, but can use a little bit of a value buff for a couple different reasons, is actually going to be a champion I have at rank 3, and that's going to be Elsa Bloodstone. So Elsa's a really fun champion to use. I don't think anybody can really deny that. The issue with her is that I do find her, consistency very unreliable when it comes to utility and whatnot. Her damage is okay, but here's the problem. Her damage only reaches that really good level when you run her with the Suicide Masteries, in my opinion, and she's not the most suicide-friendly champion in the entire game, okay? Now here's another thing. When it comes to her utility, she has her Shrug debuff over here, right? So basically, she has a 100% chance to purify 1 of any debuff every 2.6 seconds. Only non-damaging. That's not really good enough for most scenarios when there are other champions who shrug like that coming out in the game, who came out after Elsa. When she first came out, yeah, this was a pretty decent bit of utility, but that could certainly be beefed up, and that could be a really amazing piece of utility if that cooldown wasn't as long, if it wasn't just 1 of any debuff, right? If maybe it was all debuffs. Now, the crit rating that she gets when she does purify a debuff is nice, but you're not going to have those debuffs in every match as well. But that little green number there for the purifying, that's totally fine. Another thing here is that her little counter evade thing, the cooldown for 11 seconds is kind of long. I feel like this is one of the main selling points of this champion, and 11 seconds is a very long cooldown. If you're going to give her this piece of utility, give her this piece of utility, make it every 5 to 6 seconds. We have champions like Mole Man, who has the passive Unstoppable pretty much with 100% uptime. If you want her to have the utility, give her the utility. She's still going to be squishy if you mess up. Okay, now everything else I'm pretty much okay with, except for the fact that I would like the potency of her damage over time effects as well as her regular hits as well to be just a little tiny bit more potent in any good matchup. So that's currently who I'm slotting at number 5, and keep in mind, having any champion on this list is not going to be a diss saying they're a bad champion. It's going to say that I think they're a very good champion and can go to Mole Man type levels with just the tiniest little alteration. Okay, keep in mind, Mole Man was one of the worst champions in the game. He had a tiny little tweak, and now he's regarded as one of the best. So Elsa is a really fun champion, really great to use, has her uses, but she could be so much more. With all that being said, let's move on to number 9. Now, number 9 is another soft spot champion for me, and that's actually going to be Mysterio. Now, I think Mysterio would benefit very, 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 very highly from a value buff for a couple different reasons. When you look at his abilities, some of it doesn't work too well on offense. When you look at the special one, as fun as it is, it just isn't the safest thing to use on offense. I feel like there should be some safeguards thrown into this to make sure that he's not going to die while that reflection gas is up, maybe once per fight, right? On the special 2, there is some nice utility when it comes to holding the heavy attack and having the 100% chance to miss on the heavy attack, but also, here's the biggest issue I have with Mysterio, okay? On the special 3, that's where you gain your damage. While Frenzy Gance is active, Mysterio gains 7,500 attack rating, and the potency of his poisons are increased by 300%. So you have to go for the special 3 to get your good damage, but then you lose out on your utility of your heal block, for example, and other stuff that he has, okay? So I feel like the changes needed to make Mysterio so much better are very, very small and very attainable in just a very simple value buff, okay? Make this guy a little bit more practical to use on offense while not taking away his damage to sacrifice his utility and vice versa, and we have ourselves a really powerful tech champion in a class that could still need quite a bit of a boost even with 7 or 8 tech buffs in the past year and a half alone. Now, number 8 is possibly going to ruffle some feathers once again, no pun intended, because we're going to go in with Venom the Duck. Now, Venom the Duck is a champion that I feel like a lot of people forget exists in this game. Why is that? Because we keep getting these new symbiote champions, and they all work in a better way than Venom the Duck, okay? Venom Pool is getting a very similar mechanic, however, it's just so much more practical to use than Venom the Duck. You go into the fight with Venom the Duck, and you can bank 3 of your buffs. That's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to do anything to bank 3 buffs in your first fight. In the second one, 3 more buffs. In the third fight, 3 more buffs. Okay, now you're starting to cook with Venom the Duck. Now you're starting to do good. However, it takes a very, very long time to build up those buffs when Venom Pool has a mechanic where pretty much Venom the Duck on his special 1 siphons the opponent, okay? And that speeds up his process of gaining buffs. Venom Pool, all he has to do is hit him with basic attacks. So that's one quick and easy value change right there. Change the way that you gain those buffs, okay? Also, take away the 3 buff first fight limit. Let him ramp up. If you want to create a big ramp up character, make a ramp up character. Even when Venom the Duck is all the way ramped up, he's not ridiculously overpowered. He's overpowered in Variant 2. Variants are supposed to be fun. You're supposed to have fun with those. I remember when Brian Grant finally got his rank 5 Venom the Duck, he brought him into Labyrinth, and I think he quit out halfway because you have to keep watching the special 3 to activate the buffs over and over and over and over. So this guy, it takes a long time to ramp up. He isn't the most practical to use once you do have him ramped up, but boy is he fun to play. With just those slight changes to make him more kind of like Venom Pool in a way, ramp up that way, make it maybe give him a pre-fight as well, very similar to Venom Pool, that allows you to prefer one type of buff. That could also help. The littlest, tiniest changes for Venom the Duck go a long way in making this guy a very viable character for endgame content and also day-to-day stuff as well. So with all that being said, now we're going to move on to number 4, or number 7, right? Because we're kind of going in like descending order here. And number 7 is going to be Gwenpool. Now, Gwenpool is a very fun and very underrated champion. Now, the past 3, I kind of talked about abilities. I feel like Gwenpool has fine abilities. With her Sig ability here, as you can see, right, there's the green number there that allows you to tank specials. That's all well and good. But the best part of her Sig ability right here, she reduces her opponent's defensive ability accuracy based on her current combo count, right? So, that's really, really good. I do believe she reduces it by 2% every single hit that she has, so you need to get 50 hits into a fight in order to lower defensive ability accuracy down to 0. We now play a game where Falcon is a top skill champion. All you have to do is dash back and hold block, and you have 100% uptime on minus 100% defensive ability accuracy reduction. Same thing goes for crossbones. It's pretty much up the entire time. At this point, I feel like you could change that from 2% per hit to something along the lines of 4% per hit against every champion to make it so you have to get the 25 hits, and even make it like 6% against science champions, okay? That way, against science champions, you could ramp up that defensive ability accuracy reduction a lot faster. However, you don't have to get to 50, because very often, getting to 50 is not an option. It's not an option, but it would be an option if you don't have to get to 50. If you have to get to, say, like 17 or 18, that's a lot more feasible to shut down the ability accuracy. Everything else I feel is fine except for the damage. Increase her attack, increase the potency of bleeds, right? Give her like the Mole Man treatment, make them do more damage in a shorter amount of time, right? And you're doing pretty much, you're good to go. Make the armor break on special 3 a little bit more potent, then you have an absolutely fantastic, up-to-date skill Gwenpool, right? That's going to keep up with the rest of the class. So, with all that being said, let's move on to spot number 6. And we have another Cosmic for number 6, and I feel like a lot of people are going to agree with this one, and that's going to be Silver Surfer. So Silver Surfer suffers from what a lot of champions in the Cosmic class suffer from, and that is Corvus Hyperion Cosmic Ghost Rider Syndrome. Essentially, this guy is a champion with a lot of buffs that aren't as potent as they need to be to make him a truly relevant character, because I feel like they were kind of worried about making these buffs a little bit too potent, which is what makes Hyperion, Cosmic Ghost Rider, and Corvus, and nowadays Hercules, such absolute powerhouses, okay? So Silver Surfer, right, opposed to those other cosmic champions where you kind of go into a fight and you smash through it, you have to ramp this guy up in a very, very specific way. And once you do that, it's hardly worth it. And also, in order to get a nice 50% increase in buff potency, you have to be all the way up to Sig 200, okay? So that's all well and good, but even at Sig 200, the buffs aren't really worth it when he's one of the slower moving decent cosmic champions. So what's a possible fix for Silver Surfer? It's actually very, very easy. All you have to do is increase the potency of those buffs. Maybe give him like slightly more utility, kind of like you gave to Angela as well in her value buff, right? Let him keep up with the rest of the cosmic class. Guys, he's Silver freaking Surfer, man. He's a fan favorite character. People should be using him for more than just prestige. So many people have him ranked up for prestige, and I don't buy, oh, well, he has great prestige, as a reason to keep him how he is. 99% of the player base don't care about prestige. That's just the truth. If you play in the top 45, even top 90 of AQ, yeah, you're gonna care about prestige. But guess what? There are a lot more players than that in this game, and many of them are fans of Silver Surfer, and it's just not worth it for them to use this fan favorite character when many other cosmic champions do what he does a lot better. Alright, so with all that being said, we're going to move on to number 5, and we have our first mutant on the list, and this one is a champion that I feel like people very often forget nowadays, and that's just because compared to the rest of his class, while he used to be kind of top of the game, well, he's really fallen off over the past couple of years now, even though he does have some nice utility, and that is going to be Iceman. Now, Iceman is great. He has triple immunity and everything. However, his damage absolutely does not hold up. I don't think Iceman needs anything else but a little damage boost to make the cold snaps just a little bit more potent, the frostbite explosions a little bit more potent, and also just increase the damage on his basic hits. That's really all you need for Iceman to be a little bit more relevant in the mutant class in the meta of today's game. Iceman's already a very good character with lots of utility, right? He can tank special attacks, he's kind of stun immune with his ice armor, but the damage just does not hold up, and Iceman is another fan favorite character, alright? I feel like Iceman could really benefit a lot from just a little tiny value buff. If you look at Ronin's buff and Nova's buff, I'm talking like a little bit more than that just to beef up his damage. Throw Iceman in. Throw him in with 2 other buffs when you don't have a 3rd buff ready, right? You know what I mean? Look at the Ronin buff. Compared to like the other 2 buffs, Bishop who got all this stuff and Diablo who got all this stuff, it really seems like they didn't spend too much time on the Ronin buff. They just wanted to tweak some numbers. Well, I think Iceman is perfect for that type of buff. Whether you like that type of buff or not, guess what? Not every buff is going to be as game-changing as Diablo, changing every single ability and bringing them to the top of their class. There are going to be smaller scale value buffs, and Iceman is perfect for that. With all that being said, let's go to number 4. We have another tech champ for number 4, and this one is an interesting one. It's probably a champion that you forgot exists in the game, and it's going to be this character right here. Red Skull has so much going for him. He has some of the best block proficiency in the entire game. Look at the block proficiency, 79.4%. That is really high block proficiency. He has really solid heal block on his heavy attack every single time you use it. He has power drain when you block, right? He has shock capabilities. I believe his special 3 also drains the opponent completely of power. See? Drain all the opponent's power for every 10% of power drained. This way, gain an armor up buff. There's so much this guy has. However, his damage is just laughable. So all you really have to do is increase the potency of shocks. You have to increase his base damage output by a lot, and he already has the utility. You don't have to add more utility for this guy whatsoever. He's a a prime candidate for a value buff, and that's why he tops into the top 5. Speaking of prime candidates for value buff, I think we're all going to agree on number 3. I think it's going to be very, very hard for you to disagree that Dormammu is a perfect option for a value buff. Arguably one of the strongest forms of power control in the entire game. Parry medium, as long as there isn't any passive power gain or increased defensive power rate, they're never gaining a bar of power. In fact, they're never even starting to gain a bar of power. You can parry heavy at the beginning, parry medium, all the way up to special 2, power lock them, feel free to attack them, get the burst damage on the heavy attack. The power control this guy has, along with the nullification capability on his special 1. Look at the special 1. 100% chance to nullify a positive status on your opponent. If you're imbued, nullify all positive status effects on your opponent. That's a very strong nullifier right there. Nullify all buffs on the special 1. That's very, very powerful. There's a lot that you can do with Dormammu. It's just that he hits like he's holding 2 pillows in his hands. That's how he hits. So Dormammu, another fan favorite character, an incredibly strong mystic being, he should hit a little bit harder. All the utility is already there. Bleed and poison immune. You might want to add in some incinerate immunity as well while you're doing the value buff, but this guy is a prime candidate, and that's why he makes top 3. When it comes to number 2, it's another kind of fan favorite character, and that's going to be Rogue. Now, if you've ever seen Suida's videos, you can see what Rogue can do. The difference between those videos and the average player base is they don't have Suida's skills. So, what does Rogue need in order to perform at an incredibly high level? Just a couple little things. Make her timers longer. That's really all she needs. If there are like potent buffs in the fight, Rogue is going to have a really good time. If you're as experienced with Rogue as Suida is, you're gonna have a really great time. As you can see, he destroyed the 6.2 champion boss with a 5-star in like 60 seconds, no synergies, unboosted. He's in Abyss, soloing fights in Abyss with Rogue playing so incredibly aggressively, right? Basically on the special 1, as you can see, where is it? Replicates 5 of the opponent's active buffs. That's a lot. Opponents cannot activate those buffs as long as Rogue holds them. Replicated buffs stay active as long as Rogue keeps touching the opponent, after which all replaced buffs on her will be nullified. Now, here's another thing, okay? It doesn't even say how long. I think it only lasts like 2 to 3 seconds. So there are times during like special attacks on the opponent, you have to go in and dash in. So maybe this timer can be paused on opponent's special attacks, and that might be all she needs in order for her to be a much more practical champion for everybody to use. Her lifesteal on the special 1 is very, very, very good. Rogue is healed for 100% of the life stolen. That's great. The special 2 has a great power steal, allowing you to almost chain the special 2s, especially if you have a mutant power back boost. And the special 3, look at this, 100% chance to power steal, taking 27% of their power as your own. And look at this, activates 1 buff per type that was replicated during the fight, and buffs stay active as long as Rogue keeps touching the opponent again. There's a lot of stuff Rogue can do. She has decent buff control and okay power control as well. If you increase the length of her timers and whatnot, you're going to have a really, really, really great champion in Rogue. Now, before we jump into number 1, I actually have some honorable mentions who just squeaked out of the list, okay? And before we jump into number 1, let's talk about those honorable mentions. We have 3 mutants that almost made the list, and one of them is X23. Now, the reason why X23 didn't make the list is because she's already an amazing champion for newer players. She's very simple to play, parry 5-hit combo, regenerate, get some bleeds, but the issue with her is she has a stack limit of 5 bleeds, right? Just remove the stack limit. Make the bleeds a little bit more potent, make her cruelties a little bit more potent, maybe make the regen a tiny bit more potent, and then you're going to have a really great, very simple champion. But since she is so simple and she has a nice regeneration, she didn't crack the top 10. The other mutants that I have are Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister, I feel like, has a lot of potential if he were to get a value buff. He can do so many really cool things. I made a really fun Mr. Sinister Horseman video back last year when Apocalypse came out. Go check it out if you want to. The only issue is he takes so long to do what he did. So while he has everything that he kind of needs already, immune to reverse controls, can block unblockable special attacks, everything like that, he has a lot going on. The damage just isn't there. So he can be another one very similar to Iceman, just boost up the damage. That's all you really need. And then you're already going to have a decent champion now who can compete with other champions in his class. So, the final mutant that we have is, if I can find her, PSYLOCKE. PSYLOCKE is another champion who has some nice utility, okay? She has really, really phenomenal power control in the right scenario. As long as there isn't any passive power gain, she can pretty much keep the opponent locked down to 0 bars of power indefinitely. The only problem is her damage is so low, especially not as a horseman, that it's almost never worth it. That's why you don't see too many people using PSYLOCKE. If you just boost up that damage a little bit and take away her reduced offensive power rate, you're going to have a pretty good champion in PSYLOCKE, a really, really nice power control champion, all right? So, we have 2 more honorable mentions in different classes, and number 1 is a science champion. And the reason why these next 2 champions didn't make the list is because I did tend to gravitate more so towards champions who are older as opposed to newer champions. For example, that's why Iceman edged out Mr. Sinister. But the science champion who I think can benefit very, very highly from a value buff is actually Red Guardian. Now, Red Guardian's a very decent champion with a lot of underrated utility. However, his trauma debuff, as well as his debuff on the special 3, they're very, very short length, right? They're very short. And it's very stressful to play, and in order to play this guy to the maximum capability, right, you want to go special 1, special 3, special 2, heavy attack, and as you can see, at SIG 200, all his debuffs last 30% longer. Okay, so it's max SIG for still a very short duration. So what this guy needs is just to really just improve those durations and make him less stressful to play, right? Look at the difference between Mr. Fantastic pre and post buff. That's really all that changed, and he feels like a different champion. If you make Red Guardian a lot less stressful to play, unduped, and then at a high SIG, make him very casual to play, you're going to see a lot more people using Red Guardian, I think. That's the biggest issue, is that he's stressful to play, and there are usually better options because of that. But the damage capability on Red Guardian when things line up is very good. He doesn't need a damage boost. He just needs a duration boost, so he'd be a perfect champion for the value buff. But like I said, I tended to gravitate towards older champions, and that's why the final honorable mention didn't make the list in Black Widow Deadly Origin. Now, she has wonderful damage. She has fine shock damage, right? Very fine, wonderful damage in damage over time. And that's it. Her basic hits don't do much at all. That can use a little bit of a boost. Now, I feel like she can use an Angela type buff as well, where she gets that little bit of utility hidden in a value buff, okay? What I would love to see for Black Widow Deadly Origin is I would love to see them reduce the Widow's Insight timer from 50 down to 20. I would love her to get a little slight animation change on her counter evade. That way she can counter afterwards, kind of like Elsa. I would also like it if her shock damage was increased just a tiny bit based on how high your Widow's Insight goes. And very often it feels like the Widow's Insight does nothing. Another thing here, her sabotage debuffs do next to nothing damage, and the utility doesn't line up, right? So you get 70% usually reduced defensive ability accuracy on medium attacks when sabotage is active. It goes up to 90%, but that doesn't hold up with the rest of the skill class anymore, who has minus 100% defensive ability accuracy everywhere you look. Right? So you need the debuff in order to get to 90%. It just doesn't cut it. So she can use some of those values to be adjusted and make it kind of easy for her to get to minus 100% defensive ability accuracy, increase her basic hits, fix that little animation change, right, on the counter evade, and maybe make her shocks shorter and stronger to make her a little bit more bursty, and then you have a really great champion in Black Widow Deadly Origin. So with all that being said, we are now going to move on to the champion I would love to see get a value buff the most. Ghost Rider. OG Ghost Rider. The superior Ghost Rider. Not really, but this guy has so much going for him. He is bleed immune, he's incinerate immune, he has power drain on special 2, fate steal on special 1, damnation on special 3, a bleed, a fury buff. but it doesn't have a 100% chance to activate. So you kind of have to play this guy with Blade. Also, even when you do, his damage output is very small. Even at SIG 200, he takes a very long time to get through fights. He has so much going for him, and all he needs, 100% chance to activate a Judgment, Synergy or not. Increase his damage. Increase it. Make it higher. That's all he needs. He's number 1 on the list because, in my opinion, he has the easiest fix. The easiest fix for a value buff. Change the Judgment chance, 100%. Take the damage, maybe just make the Fury buff more potent. Then you have an amazing, amazing Mystic Champion with a ton of utility. And that's why I put him at number 1. Now keep in mind, this is my list, right? None of this is happening. Just for fun. Who I would like to see, who I think would benefit the most from this type of buff. You might disagree. You probably disagree. That's totally fine. If you disagree, that's not much I could do about it. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below if you really want to, but I'm not going to be getting into arguments with anybody about what your list is, what my list is, why my list is dumb, why you think maybe Red Skull shouldn't be on here. It's totally fine. The best thing about this game is that we can all play it and have different opinions. Alright? So I do hope that everybody's civil in the comment section with each other and don't attack anybody else for their opinions. That would be great. But anyway, my dudes, that's going to be it for this fun little video. Just a top 10 list and with a couple honorable mentions for champions who I think would benefit very, very highly from a very nice, quick, and easy value buff. Let me know in the comment section below, though, if you do agree or disagree. I am curious to hear. I'm just not looking to get into arguments with anybody, right? But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop that like, drop that comment, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any other future videos just like this coming to you in the future. And I'll be seeing you around.